Welcome to episode 27 of the Hottoycast, the climbing the social ladder of our most esteemed podcast, where we discuss all things high-end action figures from the likes of StarAce, Hot Toys, Sideshow Collectibles, and many more. You will note that I put StarAce first. There's a reason why we put StarAce first. I mentioned it on the list today because we actually have StarAce on the show with us today. And we have David Stephen, who's an associate and English-speaking liaison for StarAce, because they're in China. As you guys well know, a lot of these companies are in China. So, David, how are you doing today?
Okay, thanks, Eamon.
Did I describe you correctly there? Just this associate, and what else do you do for StarAce?
Well, I help them with their social media. I do a lot of their marketing, and I also assist in contacting U.S. studios for licensing.
Cool, excellent. Okay, cool. Well, we've got Jeff and Mike with us as well today. So I guess say hello, lads.
Hi there.
Hey,
hey.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey, Cassius Clay. Okay, then. Let's get on with this. We've got some nice juicy questions now. So what we did was, listeners, we put out some questions to our forums, Sideshow Freaks, Facebook, all the usual stuff, Twitter, blah, blah, emails, whatever. And we just asked a bunch of fans, because StarAce do have a lot of fans. You know, they're producing some really, really, really nice figures. And I'm going to put out there that I think they're really, really, really kind of catching up nice and quickly with obviously Hot Toys being probably arguably maybe the main guys doing this at the moment, but StarAce are definitely doing stuff that is really catching people's eye and stuff like that. Especially you, Mike. You get quite a lot of StarAce, don't you, Mike?
Yeah, I've got quite a bit.
Good stuff. And I, of course, happen to work for StarAce. And literally within the last hour, one of the reasons why we're running a bit late today is I've literally put all the Quidditch figures to print. I got Quidditch Harry. These are the deluxe ones, so deluxe Quidditch Harry, deluxe Quidditch Draco, then the 2-pack, and also I just had to do some quick amendments on Hagrid, Dumbledore's tomorrow. So I'm up the walls with StarAce work at the moment. And
you're rocking it.
Yeah, I'm rocking it. And you know, I have to say, the Hagrid one might be one of my best packaging designs yet. I'm really happy with Hagrid so far.
Cool.
So, without further ado, I think we should get into some questions. And what we'll do is I'll just ask one. Jeff, you text the next one. Mike, you ask the next one after that, and we'll just go from there. If there's anything at all you don't want us to answer, David, or is awkward or anything like that, just let us know, and we can figure it out or just work around it and stuff.
Sure.
Cool.
I can answer anything, but it may not be as complete as people want.
Very good. Well, do your best. So we understand there's obviously a limitation to what you can obviously tell us and stuff, because obviously Leo and Paul, they communicate very well in English on text and stuff like that, but obviously maybe a free-flowing conversation might be a bit of a challenge and stuff as well, and a bit nerve-wracking as well. Okay,
right.
So our first question from our listeners, was any more plans for figures from vintage Hollywood epics like Steve McQueen from The Great Escape?
Well, we do have one thing we're early in licensing negotiations on, so I can't really talk about it, but it's one of the names that have come up many times when talking about, legends of Hollywood. And
it's not Monroe, is it, by any chance?
Well, we're doing Monroe. We've announced that, and we'll be showing her soon. Yeah.
So this is another one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a different female. Yeah, but I can't really say that yet.
Who could it be?
I won't ask.
Speculate there, Jeff and Mike.
I'm going to guess Hepburn, but I won't ask.
Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, Hepburn makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah.
And she's
you should be.
Breakfast at Tiffany's or Roman Holiday. Some
You
great classic.
you need to rectify that, Amy.
Who's the girl in Rear View Window?
Rear Window.
What's her?
It's not her. It's not her.
Okay, she was gorgeous. That one, anyway. Sorry. Come on.
What was the movie? Why am I blanking on the movie where she was blind?
Audrey Hepburn was blind?
Yeah, she's...
I love Charade. I know it's not Hitchcock. It's like a Hitchcock Charade. Feels like it should have been made by Hitchcock, but it's the one with Cary Grant where they're kind of chasing the stamp.
That's a great Hepburn movie. Yeah.
I love that movie, but I would have thought Hepburn would be a great one to capture in either 1/6 or 1/4 or a statue or whatever.
See, when they say Hollywood, there, I thought they might have been Clint Eastwood or someone like that, but
I'm really sorry.
I will not confirm or deny Audrey Hepburn. So.
Okay, then, Mike, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. It says here, let's see, we also saw that they are doing the 20,000 Leagues Nautilus at the booth at New York Comic Con, but that's been a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago. Is that still happening?
Well, that was an X Plus product, and X Plus is the parent company of StarAce and has been around a number of years doing Vinyl Godzilla and Ultraman and stuff like that. But that did come out and sold through, and we don't really plan on going back to it.
Why?
So yeah, it's been out. Well, it was done. It's finished. The license expired, so it's put to bed.
See, Eamon, you should have been keeping up.
Oh well, I'm not a huge fan of the 20 Leagues Under the Sea, to be honest. Is this the one that Troy McClure one? Doug McClure, not Troy McClure. Doug McClure.
No, this was the
Kirk
one
Douglas.
with Kirk Douglas and what's his name? Who was in James Mason? That's the voice I was trying to think of. Yes, James Mason.
I don't. You guys are a little bit older than me, so you're a bit more familiar with this stuff. Look, man, the farthest.
You don't have to be old. You just have to be into the classics.
This is true. Look, the farthest I go back is Smokey and the Bandit. Okay.
I said classics.
So for everyone's doing a Burt Reynolds from Smokey and the Bandit 1/6 StarAce, tell me, I'll buy it straight away. Bob, like that cool jacket he had and all, and the hat, and an excellent moustache, real hair moustache too. StarAce, please.
You're going to want to know which way is loose now with a hairy Clyde, aren't you?
That's true. That'd be good.
We'll take it under consideration.
Yeah. That's not a euphemism, a hairy Clyde, by the way.
All right, then, Jeff. Next question.
Oh no, well, funny enough, going back to when we were thinking about these questions, one of the ones that I was talking to Eamon about was obviously with the new film Wonderful Creatures, or what was it, Magnificent Creatures and Where to Find Them?
Yeah.
With Eddie Redmayne.
Fantastic Beasts.
Fantastic Beasts, that's the one. Sorry, I'm not as into Harry Potter quite as much as my kids are. My daughters are avid fans. They're huge fans. But obviously, with that new film in the works, are there any plans to be any tie-ins with that as well?
StarAce would love to do Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them figures. That's not final yet. We don't have any final word on it yet, though, on the license.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. With the rising prices of their figures, are you guys concerned at all about being in the same market with Hot Toys and the invariable comparisons? I mean, because the figures they're getting quite expensive now. Both Hot Toys and yourselves, kind of thing. Expensive. I say expensive, inverted commas. Obviously, they're beautiful, nicely made things are generally expensive. But I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Because you are slightly catching up now with Hot Toys in terms of the pricing, and how does that?
Yeah, as StarAce has been working on new figures, it becomes obvious that these are a lot more expensive than most people think to produce.
Right.
And StarAce makes far fewer in a production run than Hot Toys does. So the money has spread out over fewer figures. So that becomes an issue. But of course, always striving to reach the same levels in quality too as Hot Toys, and maybe not quite there yet, but still working on it and trying never to compromise on anything, and giving people the best of what we can do, and that's going to cost. It always does.
Of course. I mean, what is the most expensive part of the operation then? Say take the Steve McQueen, or take Tri-Wizard Harry, for instance. What would be? Because from what I understand from speaking to other companies and stuff like that, the tooling is for regular small action figures tends to be the most costly thing. But obviously you get these basic bodies, and then you can use them multiply. Obviously, what they would in scale within reason, of course. Obviously, maybe Hagrid would be like an oversized body, I'd imagine. But say for Harry Tri-Wizard and stuff, what would be the most expensive aspect of that figure? Is it the sculpting, or is it the tailoring? Is it the articulation? What is it?
Well, yes. Well, developing a body is always going to be the most expensive, and then tooling that, and then the different parts to create different sizes. Hagrid is a completely all-new PVC body, so he doesn't use any parts, and no other character will ever use any other parts from Hagrid, really, in the Harry Potter line. So that, of course, is expensive. But usually the development, because everything is handcrafted, very minimal use of digital sculpting right now with StarAce. So,
oh, really?
The sculpts are very. We have actually Hermione, the new teenage Hermione, was originally digitally sculpted, but then a traditional artist will go back over it to add the pores in and the skin texture and all of that. So yeah, it's a combination on some things, but most of them have been fully hand sculpted. So that's really one of the more expensive things. Tooling, of course, is a huge price too.
Yeah.
What about things like hair and stuff? I mean, does hair really increase the level of tooling? I mean, there's no
tooling in hair, but the research and development on hair and trying to get it to look right is phenomenally tedious and time consuming, and you may have to go back, 3 or 4 times to get things done right.
Of
Like
course.
Hermione's hair was, I don't know how many looks, they showed me, should Hermione look like this, should like that, went back between sculpted and real hair. And I think finally, we made the right decision with the real hair, because I think most people have been pleased with that. But that's very research intensive, and that, of course, costs money.
Because you were quite impressed with Hermione, weren't you, Mike?
Yeah, it's a beautiful figure.
Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, take the next question then, Mike. Go on.
Well, with the emphasis on some of the female figures in Harry Potter, as well as obviously Underworld, Hunger Games, and you have Marilyn Monroe, and now you've already sort of you're going after clearly another female character in the movie area. And by the way, that Audrey Hepburn movie I was thinking about is Wait Until Dark. If you haven't watched that one, when she's blind, that's a great one. But anyway, so it seems like that StarAce is specifically looking to work more with female figures than certainly most companies do. So if that's true, what's the driving force sort of behind that?
Really, it's the appeal of the X Plus owner, G Nakamoto, is a huge movie fan, great geek, too, and he kind of makes the decisions on what to go after and what to do. But also Lee and Paul Cho are also huge fans. So it's really more of a matter of what's appealing, what we think can work. And that's one of the challenges in marketing, is trying to appeal to a new market, trying to get 1/6 has not been traditionally a female, appeal hobby. So trying to get out there and show these figures to females is challenging.
I'm assuming Marilyn will have real hair, will she?
Who?
Marilyn. She'll probably have real hair, won't she? The figure of Marilyn.
Marilyn, no. That's a very tight, look. It's from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Yeah.
And, it's similar. You saw Blitzways. It's the same movie as what Blitzway did.
Yeah.
So,
and it's. I remember years ago. I've still got it in somewhere. I know I reviewed it for Mike. Toys McCoy did a figure of Marilyn, which was just to do with one of her kind of like military visits overseas, and she was in like kind of a bomber jacket and trousers, and they basically based the whole thing around a male figure. They just kind of put the lumps and bumps and the curves onto it. It was quite when you undressed it, it was just a male figure with like with some breasts and some thighs and an ass. It was kind of like it was quite unusual. But thinking back, I mean, God, how old is that figure now? Over 10 years old, 15 years, and it was at the time I think it was one of the best likenesses we had of Marilyn. I mean, looking back, it's very doll-like, and it was Barbie-like for the time. But yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where, because of her hairstyles, which are always kind of like tight and up, it's going to be very difficult for it to be reproduced as real hair. I know who was that company a few years ago did like 1/4 scale like Playboy dolls.
Playboy,
they did. Yeah. I got a few of them, and they were pretty bad, but they were kind of state of the art at the time, so I got them because they had real hair, but they were basically statues of vinyl.
Yeah, that's why you got them.
Yeah, that's why. They were interesting. I have to admit, I've got rid of them since.
I used them for art.
I did get the Monroe one as well at the time, and it was just like a bad drag artist. It was really, really, really appalling. And I think, obviously, recently having the new Blitzway statue, which is the first time we've actually got a really bloody good Monroe likeness. I'm just intrigued to see a posable 1/6. I think it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that as well. Because
I have to admit, a few years ago as well. Who was it? Something replicas. They were going to do Betty Page. They showed it at the toy fair. Master Replicas. What were they called? No, the company that did.
EPS.
QMX.
Yeah, no, not them. They were the people that did like Buck Rogers and the Flash Gordon.
Go Hero.
Yeah, Go Hero. But who would Go Hero linked to? Something replicas. Executive replicas. That's what I'm trying to think of. Sorry, I had a senior moment. Yeah, executive replicas. They showcased about 10 years ago, maybe not that long. They had the license to do Betty Page 1/6, and they had her in like sort of jungle outfits and lingerie and all this kind of stuff. And I remember at the time thinking it's a bit kind of creepy, but at the same time it's kind of like I'm a huge sort of 50s cheesecake fan, so that I'd have to have a Betty Page figure. But yeah.
Feishin is doing Betty Page, actually. I think she may already have been released.
Oh, really?
Feishin, Executive Replicas, and Go Hero all work together, and they have put.
I remember seeing the prototype. I know Dark Horse have done a number of statues, and and little figures because I've got most of those. But yeah, no, I'd be interested to see in a 1/6 Betty Page. So throw that out there to them.
Cool. Right, Mike, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So, can you kind of walk through the likeness approval process? Do the actors themselves sign off? Do you have any fun stories you can share, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, the studios handle the likenesses sign off, so we really don't interact unless we get feedback, from any of the actors or actresses involved. Some of them the studio has to go and ask them for. Some it's just in the contract that the studio approves them. So really, I know that that Emily saw the Hermione, the teenage Hermione, and signed off and approved it. But I don't really know. The studio doesn't really give us any feedback if they're okay with it. We don't hear, change this or so and so said that about it. So really nothing to add there much.
It's one of those weird things. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say it's one of those weird things, though, because obviously you've also got a very close relationship with Sideshow. And over the years, we've all got to know different manufacturers. And it's funny when you do know people who work on the inside and you hear about various celebrities and when they do have a degree of input in the approval process. I mean, obviously, none of us mention any names, but it does become kind of obvious that some people's people, their agents or whatever, are difficult to work with, but also some people are specifically kind of like particular about how they're portrayed in this industry.
Exactly, yeah.
I guess Drax from Hot Toys is probably the main culprit there on that one. My God, I mean,
it's not the one I was thinking of, but anyway.
Wasn't it? All right, okay. And I was also interested was that you saw Michael J. Fox on one of the chat shows, something like that, and he actually got Hot Toys to change the stand on the thing, so it wasn't a crotch grabber. It was a ring around like the old ones. So like in your collection now, Michael J. Fox or the Back to the Future figures, the only one with the grippy round waistband, because Michael didn't like it going up into his crotch like that, I guess. But there you go.
To go back to the likeness and approvals a little bit,
yeah.
I have heard stories, and the approval of a female actress kind of dictated how Sideshow developed, their female body completely and set it in firmly for all the other female bodies to come. So,
really, give us an example of that, please. Can you have an example?
Well, Buffy.
Probably not. All right.
Sarah Michelle Gellar had a very distinct idea what her body should look like, and so that's what they did for her, and that had to be the female body that they used for a while. So.
Was that good, or was that a good thing, or was that just like, whatever?
Well, she was a lot thinner than a lot of females, or she perceived herself as a lot thinner than a lot
of fair
female
enough.
body.
I've seen that with likenesses, though, too, facial likenesses, where the actor may not... You'll see situations where people will get a likeness in the end, and they'll say, this doesn't really look like the actor or the actress, and what really has turned out is the actor or the actress themselves don't have a good perception of what they actually look like.
Right.
And have dictated changes that have actually pushed the sculpt away from a much better likeness.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I've heard about certain actors and actresses, particularly actors, which I'm not going to mention. But,
it's understandable. We all have a different perception of ourselves than
exactly.
reality.
I mean, let's face it. When you look in the mirror and when you see yourself on a photo on Facebook, you think, "Oh my God, who is that guy?" That's not the guy I see in the mirrir. But yeah.
Well, you've actually been 3D. You've been 3D printed, haven't you, Jeff?
I have, yeah, but I think that's quite a different experience because obviously I'm not in character; it's just me. But even that, I mean, that was how many years ago now? 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I don't know. And obviously the quality of that's come on a lot more since then. But even back then, I did look at it and think, "Oh my God, is that what I look like?" Okay. But it's like hearing your voice back. Is that whole thing about we don't see ourselves in 3 dimensions from any angle at any given point generally, and we don't hear our own voices unless it's on a recording. So it's weird.
Cool. Right. Can you tell us how long it would takes David then from like a figure? How long it takes the whole process, like from initial concept to like the final stage and go to print stage? How long does it actually kind of take?
Well, it depends on a lot of things. It comes from the approvals from the studio. It comes from whether we're happy with the sculpt or not. I can tell you, Marilyn, we've had the license since the same time as Harry Potter, but trying to get a Marilyn sculpt that we were happy with was very difficult. She's been sculpted, I think, now 5 times.
Really?
By different sculptors. So we're getting ready to show her. I think she's almost there. So But it could take 18 months. It could take 2 years to get a figure to market or just solicit from development. Hagrid was a big prototype. I mean, they started prototyping Hagrid when they first got the Harry Potter license, but it took a long time to develop the new body and to get everything right. As you may have seen on the forums, going back between sculpted and rooted for the beards, that kind of thing. So it just depends on the figure. It depends on approvals. Depends on the licensing. There's so many factors. It's hard to say for certain what is the exact time frame.
And then once the figure is kind of like made, then once it's like approved by the studio and that prototype, how long then from like prototype to actual box figure ready to ship out?
Well, it depends how quick our box artist is, of course.
Oh well, yeah. Well, they're those guys can drag.
They're notoriously slow. Those guys.
Yeah, those guys can drag.
No, it can be fairly quickly. I mean, the tooling takes about a month to do, and then producing and packaging and then shipping takes a month, over the seas to get to distributors. So it doesn't take that long. You could do it in 2 months.
Yeah.
But so you'd hand the prototype to the factory. So what would actually happen there? So you would hand the final prototype to the factory that would be fully tailored, fully all the rest of it ready to go. And is that what the factory then get? And obviously,
well, not necessarily. The way StarAce works and some other companies work is that you work with the factory in developing the costumes and developing, how you're going to do the hair, if it's real hair or if it's a sculpted beard or whatever. So that's part of it, working with the factory well in advance of manufacturing. And then once everybody's happy with it, the factory has been involved for a while now. Now, again, this is just StarAce, not necessarily, Hot Toys or Sideshow or anybody else. And so they will be able to reproduce things better because they helped create the prototypes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Of course,
right, okay.
Sculpt comes to them, fully formed usually, but other than that, they help with everything else.
Yeah.
And how do they get the little small stitching? And do they have little micro machines or something? How do they get that small level of stitching? That really tiny little stitches. That's quite uncanny how you can get that small stitching. I mean,
yeah, it is specialized machines, and it's skilled labor too. It's not just anybody on an assembly line making these things. These are all kind of handmade products, even though it's on a it's made in a factory, and you see them all lined up in things. There's hand touch on all the paint and all the costumes.
But it's also like sourcing all the materials as well. I mean, like when you're using a fabric, obviously on a full size shirt for an adult, it needs to have wear and tear, it needs to be a certain thickness. But to get something that kind of hangs right, particularly when you've got a layered costume on any figure. Sourcing those fabrics that are the right kind of thickness, and they'd be gossamer thin. Let's face it, if they were real world absolutely perfect, they'd be gossamer. They're almost too thin to hold. But the fact that you guys, you Sideshow do a great job on it, and Hot Toys do an amazing job on it, and all these companies do an amazing job on it. Just the sourcing of those materials, and sometimes going to the lengths of kind of organising the manufacture of these fabrics, so that they are exactly the right kind of like pattern, exactly the right kind of weight and thickness. That is where I think this whole collecting thing, although we're geeks, we know it, we love it. There's always going to be those naysayers who think that we're just weirdos. But at the same time, when you are in it at this sharp end, and we're looking at this stuff, it is art. It is you are looking at artisans who are just like going that. Not an extra mile, but going an extra 10 miles every day just to absolutely make sure that because we are the most harsh critics on this bloody planet, are happy. And it's the fact that the people like StarAce are doing that now. They're new in the arena to a degree, but the fact they're doing this stuff, I think, is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's one thing that you get the factories involved early on is for the sourcing of materials, because if we have something prototyped in the U.S. or the U.K. or Japan even, and then go to the factory in China, they may not have the same materials available. So it's important to get them involved.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I would love to be able to make a little mini documentary and just follow the progress of one figure from start right to finish to boxed on the shelf. I'd love to just see that whole process, see and show all the people the level of skill and dedication and love that goes into these things. Because obviously the people who work on these, especially for something like StarAce and Hot Toys, and because they're at the top of their game, you can see that people who are working on these, they've got to love these things, or love at least what they do to a degree, because the perfection that's kind of got into it, and the attention, and the quality control as well is really high on these as well, in terms of how the paint is so consistent. Eyes are consistently good. There's no pupil offset, or there's none of that. You don't see those kinds of mistakes in StarAce and Hot Toys figures. In particular, you don't see those kinds of bad. There's a few other 1/6 companies now occasionally where you'll see that final prototype figure and that left eye just isn't as good as the right eye, and on a 1/6 scale figure that's just not really good enough. You need that kind of level of quality control. So I'm always impressed when I see a StarAce figure, how the quality is always just quite consistent.
Yeah, Leo Lee, the head of StarAce, is in the factories almost every other week.
Really?
Looking at quality control and trying to make sure everything is going on exactly like he wants. So, yeah, that's a very important part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think having someone on the ground at the point of manufacture that can visit, the manufacturing plant on a, if not daily, then at least, once a week, twice a week basis, just to make sure they're happy with the quality. That is so bloody important, because from my limited experience of knowing people that have gone into the production of figures, the thing they hand over and the thing they brief on and the thing that they see produced in the first week is often not the thing they see produced in the second, third, fourth, fifth week. So yeah, being able to keep on top of that quality control is huge, particularly when you're having a manufacturing plant in Asia.
You can always tell the difference, too, when a company has a license that they really love and a license that they probably picked up because they thought they could make money off of it.
Yeah.
When you have those people who've picked up a license, the Harry Potter license with StarAce is a wonderful example. They clearly love the license. They clearly love the characters. And it's true across the board. It's like for those of us who used to collect the Palisades Muppets figures, you can tell when a company really loves the license and really puts their effort into it.
Yeah. I also think that's true of going over to Hot Toys. It's kind of like Howard Chan loves Star Wars, and it's kind of like the fact that you look at the love and detail that's gone into Han and Chewie, and also Luke to a degree, and Vader very much. But then you compare it to something from the new films, which everybody's into them, but it's that whole thing whereby you look at Han's boots and their fabric and they've got the proper soles, and it's kind of like Han has to be done right. When you're looking at, the New Order TIE Fighter pilot, he'll be done right, but he doesn't necessarily need leather boots. I think there's that kind of, there are certain characters as well within universes that manufacturers like, this guy, we've got to go above and beyond and just get this guy absolutely bloody right.
Favoritism, innit?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Mike, do you want to take us on to the next question? That kind of sort of ties into what we're talking about.
Let's see. The next one I have here on my list was around kinds of problems. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep,
yeah, the kinds of problems you might encounter from prototype to final manufacture, and if there's a lot of compromising that has to go on in that process.
Well, as we just discussed, that compromise is not really part of the equation when you're doing these figures, and the fans are so demanding, and we're demanding too. We have to get it right from before we release it. So. Problems that you encounter, you look at things like sculpted versus rooted hair. That's one question that comes up a lot, for the Harry Potter figures. And we went to the fans and said, hey, which do you think looks better? And you're always solving problems. Prototyping anything probably is problem solving. What material to use, what sculpt to use, is the face big enough? There's so many different things, so yeah, there's always problems.
Speaking of the sculpted hair versus the rooted, we're starting to see more use of the sort of the combo, where part is sculpted and part is rooted. Do you think that's going to be sort of? Do you think we're ever eventually going to get to a position where we've got like sculpted beards or rooted beards and not sculpted ones, or are we always going to see sort of this combination?
Well, trying the rooted, we wanted desperately to do the rooted beards, and we saw the prototypes in New York, and the reaction wasn't that great from the fans. They just didn't necessarily respond to it as well. And also, we did try it in production, and the waste on rooted beards, things that just didn't look right, was huge, really expensive. We're talking over a third probably in waste on
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you got to be more economical than that, I guess, on something like that, don't you?
So yeah, it just didn't work. So we think the hair works on the head, but not necessarily on the chin. So that's why you're seeing the mix. And a Gambon Dumbledore, you'll see the same thing. Now from the start, we probably won't even go with a rooted Gambon, although you did see that at Toy Fair at the New York Comic-Con.
Cool. That's great. Right, cool. Well, let's see that. We're going to go into some Harry Potter questions now. Next, strictly Harry Potter questions, because there's a lot of people with Harry Potter questions. Although we got all the world questions as well. We got a couple of other general questions. But I think we should get through the Harry Potter ones. But what we'll do is first we shall take a commercial break. So we should come back, listeners, after this important message. Looking to find collectible figures at low cost with superior customer service? Fanboy Collectibles is one of the largest retailers of high-end collectibles on the east coast of the USA, carrying a full array of Hot Toys, Enter-based Sideshow Collectibles 3A and all the top manufacturers. Domestic and international packages shipped daily, all fully insured with tracking number and securely packed. Getting it to you as quickly is important, but not as important as your collectibles arriving in pristine condition. Are you looking to pre-order an item to guarantee you don't miss it when it's released? Well, Fanboy Collectibles does that too. If you got a question about an item, give them a call, shoot them an email, or even leave them a message on their Facebook page. Fanboy Collectibles is available full-time to respond to you and to get your items to you as quickly as possible. Anyone can make a sale. Fanboy Collectibles knows the key to being successful is repeat customers. That comes from doing the right thing by you and making customer services their priority. Fanboy Collectibles. For some it's a hobby, to them it's an obsession. Europe listeners, look no further than Space. Space, search for popular action figures and collectibles ends. The best service possible and steady accessibility by email and telephone is one of the top priorities at Space. They carry a wide range of collectibles, not only from major brands like Sideshow, Hot Toys, Enterbay, NECA and McFarlane, but they also specialize in the exotic and small new manufacturers. A very important department to them is their 1/6 scale section, which is currently getting bigger and bigger, offering lots of clothes, bodies, head sculpts and accessories. Hot Toys is of course one of their specialities, so you can pre-order all newly announced figures from their web store. They often have Hot Toys figures in stock earlier than any other dealers. They are also the best source in Europe for convention exclusives. Space loves what they do, so you can depend on them for secure packaging, ensuring your items reaches you in mint condition. In-stock items get processed normally the same day. Pre-ordering customers will be notified in advance once an item arrives in stock and before it gets shipped. Space is located in Germany and offers clearly arranged shipping flat rates to all European countries. On most destinations you can even get free shipping. For EU customers this of course means that you will not be surprised by any customs fees or import taxes. Space is serving us collectors with the finest items for over 15 years. If you're located anywhere in Europe, do go to Space. www.space-figures.com. Okay, and we're back. So, right, we got some Harry Potter questions. Can we expect to see versions of Deathly Hallow Harry, Ron, and Hermione?
That's an excellent question. And I don't really have an answer for you. There are more versions of Harry and Hermione planned right now. And maybe Ron. Not necessarily in the next, in 2016. Deathly Hallows versions, not right away. I mean, we're kind of going chronologically. If you've seen, we did Goblet of Fire Harry, and you may see another teenage Harry before Deathly Hallows, another teenage Hermione, and not the one you're thinking of before we see a Deathly Hallows Hermione.
Cool. Jeff, next question.
The next one was really about, obviously we've had a lot of the heroes. We did get He Who Cannot Be Mentioned, but at the same time, are there any more villains planned? We'll be getting Bellatrix, however you pronounce it, the Death Eaters, Dementors, Bellatrix, that's it, yeah. The Death Eaters, Dementors, because, it's always nice to even your display out with a few bad guys. Are they planned?
Sure. Yeah, Bellatrix is one of the most requested figures, and she's not on the 2016 plan, but she's definitely in development right now. As for generic, these are expensive figures. So a generic Death Eater or just a Dementor is not really in the plan right now.
Would it be more unique tooling on, say, something like the Dementor?
Well, there's a lot of it doesn't use a standard body. It's more skeletal, so it could be done as maybe as an accessory. That was one thing that was discussed at a point, to make him an accessory with somebody. So that's still up in the air. We really don't know what's going to happen with the Dementor.
Cool. Is Dobby, not to be confused with Peep Show's Dobby. I always whenever I hear said Dobby, Peep Show's Dobby. Hello, Dobby. Is
that even known in the US? Peep Show?
In some people, I think what
cool circles.
It's want to be one of those things on BBC America, I'd imagine. So people watch BBC America. But is Dobby, Crookshanks, and Nagani planned?
Well, actually, all three of those are in the books, but the licenses for 1/6 characters from the movie, not creatures. So what we've been doing with Hagrid and with Dumbledore are doing a regular and a deluxe version.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what you'll be seeing probably is a creature come with a figure as part of a deluxe set, rather than selling a creature separately.
Cool.
And that includes Dobby, Crookshanks, and Nagini. All of those you'll probably see the next year or two.
I have to, without jumping too far ahead, that whole thing of the deluxe set kind of answers a question that we've got a couple down the line. This whole thing about environments as well, because a common room or bedrooms or whatever from Hogwarts would be great kind of little display environments. Have you got any kind of plans to expand on that idea?
Again, the license doesn't really cover that as it stands right now. We're talking about doing a lot of different things with Harry Potter because it's been fairly successful.
Yeah.
But that really isn't on the books right now to do the environments. But, if that's something fans would want, it's something we are definitely talking to Warner Brothers about. So, hopefully, maybe in the future. Yeah. Who knows?
Take the next question there, Jeff.
Sorry?
Take the next question after that as well, then.
Oh, right. We were talking about environments. The other thing was what was the likelihood of seeing some other of the main characters from the Harry Potter world? We were specifically talking about like Neville, Luna, Ginny, Fred and George, any of those kind of like, the main players, but not the main players, but the peripheral characters that, everybody knows and loves. Are they in the pipework?
Well, they are, like you said, they are not necessarily main characters. And again, expensive figures, and you've got to figure out what's going to sell, 2,000 or 3,000 units. So maybe Fred and George necessarily aren't in that plan right now. So I'll tell you, the ones mentioned really aren't on the books right now, but who knows in the future if everything goes well.
It's funny because thinking back to, I'm just thinking how companies obviously can get their fingers burnt a bit, and I'm thinking specifically like Big Chief when they did they still have got the Doctor Who license, they're doing very well with it, but it was kind of like the first time they did an assistant, which was what was her name, the redhead girl. My mind's gone blank. Yeah, and Amy, and she came up with like rooted hair first, and there was a lot of problems, and then they kind of re-released it with the sculpted hair, which was good. But there seems to be a natural kind of I say natural, it's an awful way of putting it, but in the 1/6 female figures never do quite as well. So on top of that, the fact that you're going for peripheral characters, I suppose their bread and butter at the moment is very much going to be going for the mainstays.
Exactly, and female figures not selling well. I mean, Hermione is one of the best selling figures we have. So I think it depends a lot on execution as well.
Yeah.
I think the whole tide has turned on female figures in general. People are a lot more open to it now than they ever were. Man, I had a tough time even having a Tila figure when I was a kid.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember back in the day, years ago, when I was a mod on the Freaks board, and somebody making a comment about the fact that they got a hard time from their dad about the fact that they collected 1/6 at all, and he said that if I was to collect a 1/6 female figure, he would just give me such a roasting. I remember thinking, that's just so bad. I mean, you're into something. I mean, why? It doesn't matter what gender they are. But the fact that he was that worried that he wouldn't even buy a 1/6 female figure because his dad would give him a hard time, I remember thinking, oh, that's so process.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. My old man would probably look at me a bit peculiarly as well. But these are all older generation. The times have moved on. I mean, as I said, I had a tough time getting figures myself, and even just like He-Man figures, and I was kind of getting a little bit maybe in his eyes too old for them, kind of a thing. But you muscled on regardless, anyway, did you?
Absolutely.
Well, how about collecting a Hermione, which is a not just a female but a schoolgirl, a child. So
yeah, people make comments about it on the boards.
Yeah, and likewise. I mean, I will collect anything. I mean, if it's 1/6, I find it interesting. And so years ago, I bought a figure of this guy called Tom of Finland who does these kind of homoerotic art. Yeah, I bought the figure that go with that. And likewise, when they did the manga, the anime version of that figure, Lane, who again was like a little kind of schoolgirl figure, and they were in my collections. And it's funny the reaction that people have to this stuff, because they associate it with something that they're bringing to the table that you're not at all. You're just a collector. You're just like, no, it's 1/6. I think it's cool. It's art. I want it. But people bring their own agendas to whatever it is that you collect. You're just like, whatever. Okay, you can think what you want, but I'm just collecting this shit because I think it's cool.
Wow.
I think nowadays also that they've moved so far away in quality from, they don't look like Barbies anymore. They look like little 1/6 people. So I don't think the stigma is there quite as much as it was, in the early days when we all started.
Yeah.
I mean, I have actually had a couple of conversations with a very well-known YouTube's channel that deals specifically in retro action figures, and they're very purist in their outlook on action figures, and they don't like the Hot Toys and the StarAces. They feel that they're like mini effigies, and it's like Madame Tussauds Houses of Wax, and I'm like, God, but if you showed me that, I promise you, if I showed you this figure when you were 7 or 8 years old, you would have lost your mind.
You would have creamed your pants.
You would have gone nuts. You would have gone absolutely bananas. Like, if you would have handed me a modern RoboCop when I was a kid, and the RoboCop I would have lost my head entirely. And Murphy and his clothes and more dolly, which is a bit more dolly-like. But if you show me, I'd have been all over it. Could you imagine? But I think people are a lot. But the whole geek spectrum has completely changed in the last. It's all very cool not to be collecting and to be into something now, and I think you even got hipsters just collecting things now because it seemed to be cool. So there you go, collecting action figures or whatever. Right, more Harry questions. Mike, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, more Harry questions about characters, of course.
Yep.
We've got year 4 Harry, and we've got year 4 Hermione any day now, relatively speaking. And so the question was around whether or not we're going to get a year 4 Ron, and if so, what outfit might he be wearing?
Well, Ron didn't do necessarily as well as Harry and Hermione as the children, so
because he's ginger. I'm
Okay.
ginger.
It's sad but true.
I'm ginger. Leave me alone.
That could very well be. That could be, but for whatever reason, that we'll probably revisit Harry and Hermione more than we will go back to Ron. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Okay.
Poor old Ron. He gets the thin end of the wedge every freaking time.
We got a fan here who we need that perfect Percy Weasley. Will we see the rest of the Weasley kids or their parents?
I think we just had that question answered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of answered that question. All right, there you go.
Yeah, they're all gingers, remember?
Yeah.
If we can't get Ron out the door, I don't know about Percy.
Okay, Jeff.
I think we can just write a line of the Weasleys here, can't we?
Okay, we can indeed. Ignore. Poor Ron.
Yeah. I mean, the next question I've got is there any chance of an Oliver Wood figure with the flight stand and the Quidditch keeper hoop? Is that something that might... The funny thing is, as we're going through these questions, I'm thinking like you're kind of answering some of them for us. It sounds like we're very grounded in the main hero characters are going to be the stalwarts, but all I'm thinking is as the kind of the range progresses, is there the chance they'll go back and revisit some of the earlier films? Because as you said, they're doing it kind of chronologically. But at the same time, there's going to come a time where they come to the end and they've done all the main characters. And if there is still a hunger to keep Harry Potter as a collectible, 1/6 the world alive, I would have thought that possibly some of these characters will be revisited. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. That's always a possibility. Certainly with Harry, Hermione, and maybe even Ron. Dumbledore had a couple couple of looks. He may revisit him. Could revisit Hagrid possibly. As for Oliver Wood, I want to address that question directly. The Quidditch costumes are really cool looking, and I don't know if Oliver is in the cards, but Leo is a big fan of Robert Pattinson, so you never know if you might see a Cedric or any of the other Triwizard participants in there.
A Robert Pattinson figure would sell, I'd imagine.
You would think.
Yeah,
and he'd be extra sparkly.
He'd be extra sparkly.
Yeah.
I mean,
we could always do a Twilight pack-in costume there for him.
Absolutely.
Just
sure somebody out there somewhere wants it.
Just say it's a raver outfit.
Oh, no, I don't think you're joking.
Well,
I am kind of joking. But.
One of the things, David, that a lot of people have talked about over the years with 6 scale is sort of somehow or another getting the market back to where it was in the 60s with G.I. Joe and a Captain Action, where you had accessory packs instead of having to rebuy figures every time. So this next question kind of lent itself to that sort of that concept. If it was possible that we might eventually see sort of clothing, since they had more than one look even in the same film, if it would be possible to see clothing packs rather than having to get a whole nother figure just for a single look.
Well, I'll put this out to the people that might not necessarily be G.I. Joe and Barbie fans. Do you like to change clothes on your action figure? On your 1/6 little effigy? No,
but what I might like is to buy a figure without a head that I could just swap heads on.
Yeah.
That might be cool.
Okay.
If you've got a good likeness and you don't want to go to the whole retooling and the repainting, and let's face it, the head is an expensive part. If you could buy figures that where within a movie, you have the same character in a number of outfits, but you could just swap heads. Maybe that would be an option. I don't know, but yeah, I see where you're
just sell
coming
headless
from.
body?
Yeah, this is just it gets into a really dodgy area. I mean, I know where Dave's coming from here. I know Big Chief had the same issue. They thought about selling costumes as separates, and I think it's. And I like the idea of buying, a Star Wars figure. Like, for example, we mentioned this the other week when Hasbro did the 100th Luke and he came with his X-Wing outfit and blah, 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 blah. He had all these different outfits. That's Hasbro. It's a different thing. Very easy to dress, very doll-like. But at the same time, it's quite cool, every now and then to do a figure that just comes with this incredible selection of accessories that means you can put them in any look. But at the same time, I get where Dave's coming from. As an adult collector, don't want to sit there redressing my figure.
Yeah, but the one thing I would say is that it speaks to the same situation of reposing your figure. If I've had a figure for a year and it's been in this costume and in this look on my shelf, I'm likely to want to make it look different. And the 10 minutes it might take me to redress it's not a big deal. It's not like I'm going to do it every other day. And I wouldn't, I don't expect to get a costume the next week. But if a year from now you gave me another way to dress up, a character, to change up the look on my display, I'd probably go for that.
Well, would you pay the same for a costume change as you would for a new figure? Would you feel like that was Of course not, right? And so should we put in all the R&D and development on developing a costume, which costs us the same whether we're doing a new figure or not, and then just release the costume for a quarter of the price or half the price of a figure? It doesn't really make a lot of sense financially, and the distributors aren't interested. We don't sell directly; we only deal with the distributors, and if they're not going to carry something and they're not interested in something, it's not really something that we could do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having this discussion way back in the day on the kind of on the Freaks boards, with people saying that kind of stuff, and and having that discussion stroke business argument that. I know from a collector's angle, we always feel like we're hard done by, but at the same time, everything has to be business operative. You have to have a good business model as to why you're actually doing the thing. And if an outfit doesn't make any sense whatsoever on a financial basis, why the hell would you do it?
Right. If you can't make money doing it, there's no matter how much you love the license or love the character, if it doesn't make money, you're not going to be able to release any more characters. So.
Money, 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 money. Ted DiBiase, big laugh. That's what that is. Right. Underworld. I like Underworld, kinda. You know, it's one of those kinds of guilty pleasure movies, I have to say. And you know, I mean, what's her face is very cute, even you know, and she does look good in all that outfit and things like that. So we got some Celine questions. How is she coming along? Were you guys able to recreate her latex catsuit in one scale? And will we be getting a vamp head with blue eyes? And when can we expect to see a prototype of Victor?
Okay, wow. So yeah, Underworld is one of our favorite, you know, movies, just because Kate Beckinsale is so cute, as you said.
Yes.
Celine is going to come out this year. We're hoping probably before the middle of the year, so she should be soliciting soon. She's been approved. The sculpt has been approved. As for the catsuit, I mean, Leo went through a bunch of different materials on what could be used and what looks good being posed in different forms. So what we have and what you saw at New York Comic-Con is probably what the final figure is going to be in, because that's just, you know, how it has to be if it's going to be a posable figure at all. So that's kind of how it has to be. A second head for Celine, not in the initial release. You know, if she does well, though, we may see an alternate down the road. And Victor, we should be seeing Victor soon. The head's been approved. The sculpt's been approved. We have to get him painted, and so... And the costume development is taking a little while, but Victor's in process. He won't be far. He won't be many months after Celine's release.
Excellent. That'll be an interesting line. It's going to be interesting to see how that does, actually. I mean, and there is a new movie on the way as well. There's another Underworld on the way, isn't there?
Really?
That's right. Has there been? Wow. Yeah, there is another one. It's one of those franchises that, you know, it does well. They release the movies, they've got a budget, and the budget's always met. Every time the movies come out, they always seem to do relatively well. So there's a fan base for them.
Yeah, I didn't even see the last one. I know in the last one she came back. The one before that she wasn't in it. The first two she was. But it's funny thinking back. It's made a kind of a penny drop actually, because like with Dave saying about the fact that Sarah Michelle Gellar, you know, obviously had a big hand in playing the part in what the original kind of female body looked like. I remember when the Kate Beckinsale figure came out from Van Helsing, and obviously that had rooted hair, and it was it was of its time, you know. Sideshow did a good job on it, but it was of its time. And I'm thinking back, I remember the body on that did look a bit kind of Barbie-like, and it's obviously because, you know, as you say, they were kind of like stuck in an issue of just using that base body all the time.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, sorry, that was just me musing on something for a moment.
I think Underworld, there's a television series in the works as well as the fifth movie. Without Celine,
I can see that as in a television series. You know, they're getting very good with their CG now, so if they do those werewolves, you know, we look at like the big king shark dude in The Flash. My God, you know, they're doing some great things with special effects and things. So yeah, I mean, I'll be very curious to see the Underworld figure. I haven't seen. When will we be actually seeing some full on final kind of nice high end prototype photos of her? Will we see those soon?
It should be pretty soon, yeah. We're expecting to ship her, like I said, before the middle of the year. So, and as you can see, StarAce tries to keep the solicitations a little close to the release.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's the coolest thing you guys do, actually. That is really cool.
So we probably will see Celine at the very latest, you know, by April, I would say, if not this month.
And so what happens there then actually? So you want her prototype is essentially made, right? You have her prototype made. So did you send the prototype off to the photographer, or do you guys have an in-house photographer? What's the story there?
No, we use a bunch of different photographers, and so yeah, it goes to the photographer, and he does the photos, and they have to be approved by the studio, and so it's a process. It's just a matter of
So the photos. Sorry, yeah. So all those press photos have to be approved by the studio as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, cool. That's very interesting. Right, okay. Well, I personally actually had one final question actually that wasn't in our list. It was about a couple of other licenses that you guys have, and obviously we saw you guys had 300, but it's the 300 Rise of an Empire license, am I correct?
It's both. It's both
You've got both licenses?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I thought another company
It's one license for both films.
Oh, right, cool. So, wow, so we'll be getting characters from both movies then?
That's correct.
I don't know if you can answer now. Are you guys considering making a Xerxes? Can you answer that?
Well, he's not on the plan right now because, of course, that's a completely different kind of body. You can't use Hagrid
No.
body. So yeah, he's not really on the plan, but there's a big 300 push, and most of them you should see this year, in fact. So
excellent, very excited to see how you're going to do that. I mean, obviously it's not going to be a seamless body. It's going to be one of your nice. It's going to be a muscular body. And you guys haven't done kind of bare muscular bodies before, have you?
No, it's an all new sculpted body, and we'll be doing Leonidas and Themistocles from the second film, which will kind of use the same body, but they had very distinctive chests, so we'll have a different chest.
Yeah.
One. So that will, but it's a completely new body, and we saw it in New York. Some people saw it at New York Comic Con. We didn't release any photos because it wasn't approved by the studio yet.
Right.
But some people saw it and were pretty happy with it. So.
And what's her face? Ava Green.
Yep, she's on the plan. Artemisia.
Yeah. Ava Green figure.
Yeah.
See, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
And even our favorite queen, Gorgo.
Oh, the lovely Queen Gorgo. Oh, Alina Hedy. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Alina Hedy figure would sell very well, actually. Cause,
you think
obviously.
So?
Yeah, no, she would, wouldn't she, with her Xerxes character and everything. Ooh, which, it would be nice to see what you guys would have done with the Game of Thrones license and stuff like that. I mean, so what kind of other license are you guys kind of thinking about perusing? I mean, can we fire a few at you, or do you wanna just fire a few back at us, or?
As we saw it at New York Comic Con, we have the Scars of Dracula, the Christopher Lee Dracula coming up.
Oh wow!
Wow.
We see him this year in 1/4 scale. Oh, sorry, I mean 1/6 scale.
Oh.
And I may have slipped there a bit, but. And you can ask also about if we may be doing other types of products than 1/6 figures. But we've got.
Are you doing other types of products other than 6 figures?
Environments here.
Well, we're looking at 1/4 scale and maybe some other scales too, and other types of product. So there's lots of possibilities. We're looking to expand in other directions.
Wow.
Can I ask you, just out of interest? Now, I know that 1/4 scale has really kind of taken off recently, and I've got a couple of figures in front of me we're going to talk about later. But at the same time, I kind of got the feeling that 1/4 scale took off by accident. It was kind of like back in the day when Hot Toys were kind of gobbling up all the best.
Did we lose Jeff again?
Sorry?
No, we've lost no one. Oh, we lost Mike.
I think we lost him.
No, I'm
we did
here.
lose Mike. Oh, he's there.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. It's fine. Point.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
I can
hear Jeff.
No.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I kind of got the feeling that 1/4 scale almost happened by accident, and I don't mean this in because obviously it's become a big thing, but at the same time I think Hot Toys had so many 1/6 scale licenses, particularly in Asia, where Entebbe really wanted to kind of like start taking a bigger place in the market, and they saw that a lot of the licenses they wanted they couldn't do in 1/6 scale, so they kind of thought, okay, let's do it in 1/4 scale. So they started doing Terminator and Batman in 1/4 scale, and it was, I think, at that moment Hot Toys thought, "Hey, crap, bloody hell, we didn't think about that." So, hello.
Yeah,
we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
We're listening to you intensely.
Somebody dropped off.
We are speechless.
No. So I'm saying it's kind of like Hot Toys thought, "Oh crap, there's this whole scale that we could be playing with, and it's kind of like, Hot Sideshow are already doing their incredible kind of like, what do they call it? What's that scale
Premium
called?
format.
Premium format figures, which are, they're not posable, well, minimally posable occasionally. But I think the way I read it at the time was that Entebbe thought, right, there's these cool licenses, we can't touch them in Asia unless we do them in a different scale to the one that Hot Toys are doing them, then we can buy the license. So they did it. And I got the feeling that the market all of a sudden just reacted to it, thinking, "Oh my God, people like this scale." And it, the fact is that the manufacturing means that the price jumps, but not as much as everybody perceives it's going to jump. The 1/4 scale figure compared to the 1/6 scale figure isn't necessarily twice or three times the price or whatever. It's just a jump. So I don't know. I feel like the 1/4 scale figure is something that's come out of almost nowhere. And then you look at what obviously American companies are doing now. With I'm particularly thinking, who are the people that picked up the 1/6 Batman license? They did Pacific Rim and NECA. And they're doing a really good job at non-clothed, but sculpted figures. They're doing an amazing job on like 1/4 scale. And I think it's just like it's just an arena that's really kind of opened up recently. And is that the feeling you get from StarAce that they're thinking, well, why don't we just grab a bit of that?
Well, we were thinking more along the lines of a static piece that is mixed media, more like the premium formats rather than an articulated figure.
Yeah.
But that's it's another market. It's a different collector, really.
Exactly.
It's another way to exploit a license that may be kind of expensive, and a way to recoup on that expensive license is to do other types of figures.
Yeah. And obviously the tooling means that if it's a static figure, then obviously all the tooling and the manufacturing goes way down in the cost of manufacturing.
I just want
to say personally. Sorry,
carry
on.
Well, there's no tooling really in a premium format. It's or a resin statue. Tooling only comes in when you're dealing with the PVC and articulated bodies. So it's not as expensive to get into that or to do smaller runs. You can't justify a 500 run of a 1/6 figure because of the tooling costs. Yeah. But for a quarter scale, you could do that because you're not using steel molds.
Yeah. It's funny because I probably have less than 10, 15 statues in my collection because I am an articulation junkie. I love fabric dress figures. I love moving them. I love that whole thing about posing them, and the anatomy of the engineering that goes into them is the thing that really turns me on. But at the same time, as you say, there are so many licenses out there, I think, that have been undersold or never even ventured into. I think, regardless of how you were to carry out the actual kind of like fabrication of them, if you just touched the collector's market with certain licenses, they would just have your hand beaten off. So, yeah.
Right.
What kind of license are you thinking of looking at, David, for that smaller scale? I mean, existing licenses you have, or new licenses that you haven't announced yet?
Eamon, you've gone Dalek.
Oh.
Yeah, I can hear him, but I got the question.
Yeah.
StarAce is looking to expand in a lot of different directions with new licenses, and there's a bunch of things that we're talking about, and I'm betting one of them no one would ever guess in a million years, and a couple that have been visited by customizers and 1/6 scale in other by other companies and other scales. So there's a lot of different things that StarAce is looking at. Some very popular classic films. Probably not going to get too much into the newer films like Pan or something like that anymore, but and we still should see Blackbeard from Pan, the Hugh Jackman, should be coming in soon. We showed him in at Comic-Con New York, and the response was great, but of course the movie didn't do that well.
Yeah.
But we're always looking for new licenses, and if anyone has suggestions, we're always open.
Sure, I have one that's perfect with the focus on the female figures as well as the rooted hair and the costuming. Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I had thought of it. I've thought of that, and I hadn't necessarily pitched it to StarAce, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, especially with the TV show that they're, the new the musical that's coming up, and it's always a favorite of mine.
Yeah, and I have to admit that this week I went and did a preview of the Crystal Maze, which probably means nothing to anybody in the States, but the Crystal Maze was this huge program here on Channel 4. Richard O'Brien devised it. It was like an adventure maze that people had to go through, and they're just opening one in London, and because I work in the entertainment industry, I was invited along to go and have a go at it, and it was absolutely freaking amazing. It was just like being in the TV show. That said, I don't actually like the Rocky Horror Show, but that's another question. That's another thing.
I mean, if I was to throw anything in there, I'd be throwing in things like Mad Max, all of them, all the Maxes, and Fioras and stuff like that. I think there's some interesting, unobvious kind of movie licenses that that would be really good. It'd be really good to have a figure of that, or really a nice, good statue representation of that kind of thing.
I will tell you, if it's obvious, like Mad Max or Clint Eastwood or something like that, it's been explored, and there's reasons that there have never been figures.
Gotcha.
Right. Exactly like Blade Runner. I mean,
Blade Runner. Yes, that's a great example.
Let's face it. Everybody would sell their maiden aunt to have Blade Runner figures in their collection, and we all know.
Yeah,
but it's just not going to happen for the foreseeable.
Well, with the sequel, they may have consolidated the license, so there may be a better way of doing it now. The sequel's coming out. I don't know that.
The funny thing is you say that, and all it takes is one person with enough kind of gumption and determination. I sent you that article, didn't I, Mike, about a year ago, about that guy that made the 66 Batman series.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, because that's a license that everybody just for years said was just not possible.
Exactly, and it was literally a one-man campaign of a guy that just thought, why? Nothing's impossible. This should happen, and it was kind of like, he made it happen. So I think there's always the chance, but yeah, at the moment it's
some more effort than others.
Yeah, with Mad Max, you've got George Miller that doesn't necessarily really want to do it, and if he says no, then they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'll just back onto as you mentioned the Pan figure and stuff, and we'll finish up the show now in a few minutes. Was that and if it's a question that's overly sensitive, you don't want to go into, I completely understand. But say for something like a movie like Pan, which probably maybe initially was that license was acquired because this will be a big, huge, multi-million selling movie and whatever kind of a thing. And obviously a license is sometimes optioned and purchased before the release of the movie,
right?
So, which was obviously the case with Pan. So, but what happens then with the perceived obviously? I mean, what happens when that happens with a movie like that is perceived as being a big hit? Licenses go out and it doesn't turn out to be a big hit. Does things just not go ahead, or is there money lost on your part, etc., etc.? I mean, obviously,
sure.
if those are sensitive questions, feel free to ignore them.
Well, I mean, we've seen it from a lot of different perspectives. I remember when Sideshow released Van Helsing and Hellboy came out the same year, and they had developed figures for both. And I think Hellboy did okay, and you can still get a Van Helsing for $15 on eBay probably. So, there's always a chance when you're dealing with new licenses. But, as a new company, you have to take chances. You have to take risks. It was a Warner Brothers picture. We had a great relationship with Warner Brothers because of Harry Potter. They pitched it and said, yeah, that's a great idea. You can use the kid's body. It just made sense on a lot of different levels. Hugh Jackman's a huge star. Who wouldn't want a Hugh Jackman figure?
The Van Helsing's fans.
Well, yeah, that was a bigger risk than Pan because he wasn't a big star then.
True.
So what we're probably going to do, and I may not be able to say this, but I will. We're going to put the Blackbeard out there, see if the distributors respond, see if the fans respond, if he gets enough orders, and we'll release him. If not, then that'll be the first thing that we've solicited, not released. But
now you see, I think this is really interesting because in the same way as Hot Toys have had a real kind of love affair with Johnny Depp, and they've made a lot of Johnny Depp figures, even from Sleepy Hollow, a great film, and from Sweeney Todd, and they did Edward Scissorhands before, didn't have the likeness, but they've got a bit of a hard on for him, and in the same way as they've for the X-Men films, etc., all we've ever really seen them touch upon is Wolverine. So there's a collector's market out there for Hugh Jackman as an individual. So I think, from your perspective, it sounds like a very cool move. And as much as I would have thought, if anything's going to sell, it's going to be a Hugh Jackman figure. Let's just see what the appetite's like.
Exactly.
And see what people are going to buy into.
Look, I mean, we saw a picture of him in New York Toy Fair, didn't we? Of the Blackbeard figure, didn't we? There was a Blackbeard figure in there.
It was there, but we wouldn't allow photos because it hadn't been approved.
Oh, I did actually see a very blurred photo. I did that. Did see him. He looked nice and layered and stuff. But
exactly, very blurred.
Very blurred.
Okay. He rests his case.
So, Mike, did you have any questions yourself now for David before we let him go away?
Nope, I'm good.
You're all good, Jeff?
No, I'm great. I mean, I really enjoyed that. It was really cool.
Well, it's always fascinating to have someone on the show speaking about so intimately about the process and stuff, because as I said, it would be lovely to have to just do a one-off. I think there should be a TV show for action figures, to be honest. I'm not on a weekly TV show. I'm on a monthly TV show that you would, because there's so much effort and love and research and as you said, StarAce are choosing the licenses and they're successful in the license that they've picked because Leo and Paul like these licenses. They like the ones that they pick, and then when you see that love, the fandom is brilliant. I mean, fandom is like this. It's like this fickle thing, isn't it? On one hand, you can have the fans who just take and don't want to give back, but on the other hand, you've got the fans that grew up to be the artists and then grow up to love the things that they're doing, and it comes out in lovely, fine exquisitely made products now, like we would have never dreamt of 10 years ago, when we were kids. And when you have such companies like StarAce make and Hot Toys and all the rest of them, but we got StarAce on our show, so we give them better favor. And
Okay.
when you got a company that makes such fine exclusive products, it's nice and humbling.
But I always think the art comes out from that. As Dave well knows, and we all know from being on various forums over the years. If it's not available, the fans will make it, and they will make it very bloody well, given the opportunity. Now, it's going to be it's that grey area of licensing. And I've got a friend at work at the moment. The place I work, Dave, is where they make the Madame Tussauds figures, and it's kind of like, and there's a lot of very talented sculptors in there, and they make stuff at 1-on-1 scale. But at the same time, there are people there who are doing prop shop molding, all that kind of stuff. And there's a guy there who's a friend of mine, and he's just started making 1/6 little molds of the flotation tanks from Jaws. The ones that they harpooned the shark, just purely as a desk thing, as a paperweight. And he said, "Yeah, do you want us to?" Freaking right, I want one. He's just made this thing absolutely perfectly, every little detail. And there are people out there that are just doing this stuff, but they're not for a mass audience. They're just doing it because they are so bloody into it, and they love it, and they're just making a few for their friends. And I think that as you're saying, Eamon, there, the fact is that the world is now a much what was geeky 10 years ago is now much more mainstream. And I think it's great. I think the fact that we're all buying into this stuff and we're all loving it more and more, I think is just testament to the fact that the world is a shrinking place, and we're all just admitting to the fact that, hey, we're geeks and we love it.
Yay!
Let's keep in mind. Remember this; it's critically important. You're not a hoarder if you still have aisles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. What happens if you don't have aisles?
You should see my loft. My wife complains on a daily basis the fact that you can't even get into the loft anymore.
That's the
It's
thing.
that packed.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's when it becomes like, right, ease up now. If we don't have enough room, don't buy it. But you just still.
But it does make your cataloguing virtually impossible when you don't have aisles. Because I was there years ago.
Now, before we let you go away now, Dave, was there any one particular kind of figure you wanted to shout out, or that you're quite excited about, and you're hoping that it'll go down well with fans and stuff like that? Was there anything particularly you wanted to?
Well, obviously, we're very excited about Hagrid. Just up on Facebook was a picture of Hagrid with the kids. I think people weren't really realizing how big he is, and were complaining about the price. And now I'm hearing, okay, well, maybe that's not that expensive, because he's Hulk, Thanos size. So maybe people weren't really realizing that. So I'm shout out about Hagrid. I'm excited about some of the other figures coming up, that we have, which we can't necessarily mention right now, but yeah. No, we didn't talk about Hunger Games at all either, too.
Totally forgot about that. Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So we have some Katniss action then. We get some Katniss.
She'll be later in the year, but and we'll be seeing some other Hunger Games characters. So we're very excited about Hunger Games.
Well, that could be a very colourful line, actually. Those. I mean, I'm not a fan of the movies, to be honest, but I mean, there's some quite colourful characters in there, isn't there? Or would you be just focusing on the heroes?
It's mostly going to be the heroes, yeah.
Right,
but there's Katniss and Peeta and the President, and there's all sorts of different characters that we could do.
Excellent. Well,
just taking a slightly backward step here. Sorry, it was obviously with Hagrid, you've got Robbie Coltrane on board, and his people are happy. And I'm like we were talking earlier about this whole likeness thing, because one person that has come up time and time again in collectors' circles as potentially being a bit of a problem is who's the guy who plays Sirius Black? Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman. So was he cool to work with? Just out of interest, just purely as a fan thing?
Well, again, as I said, the studio handles all that, and for something like a franchise like Harry Potter, the likeness rights are written into the contract, so it's not something for like Steve McQueen. We have to go separately and get those approved.
Yeah.
Or Marilyn, you have to license the movie, and then you have to license the likeness.
Yeah.
But for Gary Oldman, no, it wasn't an issue because it was already there, and Warner Brothers. Okay. I don't even know if they went to him for approvals or not.
Okay, cool.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, David Stephen from StarAce Studios. StarAce Studios? Just StarAce
StarAce Toys Limited.
StarAce Toys Limited. I type out the thing so many times I should really just know myself really by now. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show, so hopefully you'll come back on the show maybe a year or so down the line again, see where we are with all the other licenses and things, and see what's happened, because it's up and up for you guys really at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, StarAce is, like I said, branching out, doing different kinds of figures, different licenses, expanding all the time. So yeah, there's lots going on.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much again for coming on the Hot Toy Cast, lads. Would you
Thanks,
like to...
guys.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. It's nice to
Right.
finally put a voice to the face and the
Yes,
type.
you too. Okay.
Excellent.
Bye, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks
Cheers,
a lot, David,
bye.
man. Thanks. All right, there you go.